Have you ever decided you're going to spice up your video making process by adding B-roll and things like that to make it a little bit more interesting than a talking head, but then you use stock footage, you rewatch what you just made and you go, wow, that looks kind of cheesy. And so this video, this template that I've made is to help solve that feeling. I actually use this with my clients, I use it with myself, but I actually just tried it yesterday with a client from Berlin, Germany. It's going to be integral to our workflow and our process. So I wanted to use them as a case study for how we're going to actually implement what I'm sharing with you in this video. If you want to download the Notion template that I'll be sharing for this shot list, you can do that in the description below for free, or head over to podmahal.com. You can also see what we're doing on the screen and make it yourself in a spreadsheet or whatever if you'd like. That works too. Now, I want to make a disclaimer. I am not a filmmaker or cinematographer, but if you are somebody who's familiar with that world, you know that a shot list is something photographers use, videographers also use to make sure that you're getting every single piece of footage on shoot day that you possibly can, especially if it's sometimes environmentally attached. So if you are on vacation and you're in a place where you're not going to be able to go back and get that footage again, it's really important to capture that. Or if it's a wedding day, you know, you can't recreate that to get the picture of the family member that you might have missed out on. So the shot list has a lot of different purposes, but assuming for you, if it's making your own videos and your own short form clips, maybe like my client, or your longer form videos on YouTube and adding B-roll over time, I find that this makes that process more authentic. It feels like, wow, nobody else can be in my apartment with my equipment, with my hands, with my phone. It just feels so much more real than searching for that on Storyblocks, right? So let me give you some background on how this is going to be used. This client that I'm working with is doing a podcast. It was going to be audio only to start, and I was going to make audiograms and graphics and things like that to make it a little bit more interesting. But thankfully, I was able to convince him, and I do this with everybody that I can, to keep the audio version if he wants, right? Just do audio only on your podcast so it's not stressful. But start to build out a library of B-roll that only you are in, only you can film. It has your hands in it, doesn't even have to have your face if you don't want, but it has you doing the things that you would be looking up for stock footage, right? And if you build this out over time, now instead of having just static images of you smiling and then, you know, it being a not really engaging video, you now have something to help tell the story for whatever your clip is about. So when we make these short form clips, instead of having to use just audiograms, we can still maybe use that audiogram elements, but now we have a moving video in the background of you maybe scrolling on your phone, right? Going to your website and showing what that looks like if that's something you're talking about in your video. The beautiful thing about this process is you don't need to film more than like 5-10 seconds. So this footage is not really going to be used more than 3 to 5 seconds, sometimes even less in a fast-paced video. Now, filming these shots of B-roll, of you doing things in and out of the frame, you reading books, and you thinking of creative ways to help tell the story of your clip or your longer form video. So let's talk about the goal behind this whole exercise if we were to zoom out. The idea is for you to have a very large library of shots for different purposes that you have accumulated over time. This doesn't all need to be done in one setting, but it's a system that you are creating for every time you record a video to be able to record B-roll and have B-roll anytime you need a shot. Oh man, I need a shot of me scrolling on my phone. Okay, I have something organized and labeled where I've actually done that. Or how do I even remember that I need to film that in the first place? So a shot list is something that videographers and photographers have been using for years. Think about a wedding day, for example. That's a moment that you can't go back and recreate to get that photo or video with that family member that, you know, came from 500 miles away. So it's really important on the day of the shoot for you to have a list of things that you want to make sure to capture. So similarly, when you are recording a video for your business or any piece of video content, chances are you're going to be doing it in some form of talking head format, or maybe if there's two speakers, you're doing the same thing. But to make it a little bit more dynamic, you'll be able to take these 3 to 5 second segments and place them directly on top of the area where you're talking about scrolling on your phone, or you're making coffee, or you're reading a book about storytelling, whatever it might be. Okay, let's dive into the template. The first column is going to be the shot. Now, describe this in as few words as possible, but enough for your brain to have a description of what you're talking about. Let's use this common example like opening a laptop. Okay, that's going to be the shot. The stage might be, okay, to film or, to edit once I have actually filmed it. So I can tag it and I can see that very easily. The next column is going to be any notes that I have for that shot. This is typically where I like to explain as if I was doing it maybe to a 3-year-old or somebody who I would have to really spell this out to, like, why is opening a laptop something worth shooting? Okay, well, this can be used for anything that is starting, right? So let's say I'm starting the video, or I'm starting a project, or I'm talking about launching a podcast. Okay, now I have this shot of me opening a laptop. It signifies starting. So you can fill that out with as much detail as you want, but typically the shot list is something you and maybe your internal team will be looking at. So you can fill this out in as much detail as you need. I like to do it in a way that I'm going to understand it, since it's really me that's going to be looking at it. But I also like to name in the shot section, whatever I've titled there is typically going to be what I like to label the file once I've actually shot it. So once I've shot the piece of B-roll, let's just say it was me clacking away on a keyboard and a close-up of my hands, no face. Okay, now I'm gonna remove sound from that. Possibly I'm gonna trim it down to the 3 seconds. Let's say it was a 3-minute thing. And so I'm gonna keep it in a place where it's just very easy to drag and drop into my timeline. But the file name that I like to keep it is gonna be the name of the shot, dash or underscore, B-roll. Okay, if I label it that, I know it's B-roll, so when I search in my computer B-roll, this could come up. And I also keep it in a folder for B-roll that just grows and accumulates over time. You could definitely organize your folder and segment it over time if you'd like, but I find that this shot list is a great database for you to not only have scenes and shots that you actually would like to record, but for after you've recorded them, a great way for you to keep track of everything that's kind of important. So let's say within each one of these shots, once you've shot it, you want to have the Dropbox link, or maybe you want to embed the video itself. Since it's not that long, it's like 10 seconds, you can actually drag that clip and make it downloadable within Notion. You would just expand the page, drag and drop the link or the video, and you're good to go. Now the last column, which I really like because this is what I've based the entire sort feature for this Notion template on, it's basically the time that the cell was last edited. So if you were working on a shot from, let's say, 3 months ago, and you don't want to waste time finding that all over again, I find that this filter that I've set where it moves that directly to the top is pretty helpful. So quick recap on the workflow. My client is going to hand off the first 2 episodes for the podcast. I'm going to review them, even just the text transcription version, and give an idea on the shots that would be helpful for me to come up with the 3 clips that I'm looking for per episode that we can share on LinkedIn and on Instagram. Then my client's going to get to work on actually filming some of this stuff real quick, dropping it in our shared Google Drive folder, and then now I have a library to work with to now create these audio-only clips, which I can make way more interesting and way more authentic and engaging simply because it's just more intimate. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You typing away on a keyboard versus a stock footage of someone typing away on a keyboard just feels different. Your apartment, your keyboard, your equipment, your hands, your clothes can't be replicated. There's just something cool about that when we're watching that on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and it can seem very advanced too, because it's not super advanced. Like, this is not a secret. People have been doing this for years, but it takes a little bit of work up front, and if you can pull it off, then it is worth it. Your watch time goes up, your engagement goes up, everything. Even a bad video can hold a little bit more attention longer when you've got a lot of good B-roll paired up with that. So I hope this was useful for you. If you are looking to get started with something like this, make sure to download the template that we were sharing in this video by tapping the description below or heading over to podmahal.com. You can download it, customize it totally for free, and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what works for you, but I appreciate you hanging out and watching today, and I'll see you next time.